Conversation with Bob Pollock is presented by First Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Hey, Bob.
Good morning.
How
You had
are
to think about that a minute, didn't you?
This week I've not been able to think of anything. I've just been stumbling all over the place. Oh, well.
Some weeks are like that.
Yeah, so we are moving into the summer months now, and weather is always a concern because of the possibilities of storms that will crop up. But we've got some in our forecast here, not necessarily severe, but you never know at this time of the year. So let's start there and talk about cleaning up storm damage in your garden. When your garden plants get beat down by winds and hard rains, depending upon how badly they're beaten up, let's focus on one plant, the tomato plant. Those stalks probably at this point aren't really strong enough to sustain really hard stuff, are they?
Well, they may be. If you have good stocky plants, and of course one way we can help to, support the plant is by staking it.
You see, I was going to ask that.
So that's a good option. So the options, we either will stake them, and there's a variety of different stakes that people use, and then they may take old pieces of fabric and then, tie that lightly around the plant and then to the stake. Mm-hmm. Then you can also use a cage. Wire cages are pretty common, although they can get a little. There's some bigger ones that tend to be more square versus the round ones, and there's some that are round and narrower at the bottom, and then they get wider at the top.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about stakes because I would think we've never staked our tomatoes, and we keep a lot of tomatoes in our garden. But when you're putting in a stake, do you have to be extra careful about proximity to the plant stalk itself? I'm thinking for the roots underneath.
Yeah, well, when the plant, if you put them in early, when the plant's small, then you can get it as close to the main stem as possible.
Okay.
And you won't disturb the root system. And that way, as the plant grows, then that root system can go out around, and actually that can help hold the stake in place better over time.
Oh, the plant actually holds the stake. I like that. That's kind of neat.
I mean, you have to get it in deep enough to begin with, but as those plants' roots grow and go out around it, that can actually help hold that soil more firmly around the plant and give you a little extra support.
Okay. So driving that stake in deep is probably pretty good, huh?
Yeah, so longer stakes, drive them in at least a foot. That gives you a good resistance there, holds the stake in the ground, because you can get a lot of weight on there as you try to train that plant up the stake. And once it gets tomatoes on there, it can be a fair amount of weight there, so it does need to be anchored well.
Yeah, okay.
Sometimes if you use wooden stakes, sometimes they'll snap off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. All right, so that was one of my questions for today. You can ask Bob a question, too, if you want to call him at 479-1160 today. Bob, what's going on with the grapevines?
And you don't prune your tomatoes, right?
No, I do not.
You just let them go wherever they go.
Yep.
So in a staking system or a caging system, usually you have to do a little bit of pruning. There'll be suckers that'll grow. You'll get a stem coming out from that tomato plant, and then where that stem comes out off the main plant, you'll get a sucker growing in there that usually grows at an angle growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times if you just go in there when those are smaller, you can pinch those right out. That keeps the plant a little more open, a little less growthy. You don't want to overdo it because then you'll reduce your yield.
Uh-huh.
But you also can open the canopy up more to where when the tomatoes are developing, they can get scald.
Okay. I asked you a question about grapes, but we have a caller first, so let's get to our caller. Good morning.
Good morning. There is a white mold growing on the leaves of my cucumber plants, my bush cucumber plants. What can I do about that?
Uh-oh.
So, yes, so white spots are probably on a cucumber are are probably powdery mildew. So where do you have those? Are they outdoors?
Yes,
Or are they
in a big pot. We grow it in a big pot up a trellis.
Okay. So usually, a lot of times outdoors, we have less trouble with powdery mildew than if we were growing them in a structure, because the humidity can build up a little bit more. It's drier in there, and powdery mildew actually likes drier weather. So if we would get some rain, which we badly need, that can help control that because it doesn't grow well.
We've been taking the worst leaves off.
If the leaves start to yellow and brown, that's okay. I wouldn't want to take too many leaves off the plant, though, and they're probably bigger leaves that you're removing.
Yes, that's right, at the bottom of the plant.
Yeah. We want to try to minimize that a little bit to keep enough leaves on the plant so it's going to be able to manufacture its own food.
We thought it might have something to do with the soil in the pot that we are growing them in.
No, those spores for powdery mildew are airborne. Powdery mildew gets on a number of plants. Probably the most common one is lilac. In the middle of the summer, they'll get all that white film on the top of the leaves. But if you take, usually reducing, of course outside we can't reduce the humidity very well, but that in itself, or moving it to where, are they in a protected spot where they don't get much air movement?
No.
Okay, because
are we watering it too much?
No. Now, because you're just watering the pot, right? The soil in the pot.
Yes, that's right.
No, that's not going to be. Powdery mildew is not going to be brought on by keeping the plant watered.
All right. So you said about moving the plant,
spores, and then they land on those leaves, and then they infect the plant.
What about moving the plant and air circulation? You started to say something about that.
Last year the same thing happened to us, and it consumed the entire plant.
Well, yes, and it will. And some varieties, that's the other thing, some varieties are more susceptible to that. So you can
just keep taking leaves off?
The worst leaves you can take off. That'll help lessen or reduce the spread of it. And then you can treat it. So trying to keep the leaves dry, keep the plant healthy, and then and you can actually use one of the interesting things they've found is but the disease is powdery mildew, and there are some different fungicides that you can use to help prevent it. Most of these diseases we can get, it'll start as just a little white spot on there, and then that'll expand to take over the whole thing.
I can buy something to treat it.
Yes. So one of the things for the home garden we can use is sulfur. So if you can get a sulfur fungicide, that can be used.
Do you put that on the leaves, or do you put that in the soil?
No, you spray that on the plant.
Okay.
Because the mildew affects the leaves, and so we've got to have that protection on the leaves in order to keep those spores from germinating and growing.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, thank you. 7:54. I'm lost in this conversation here today. All right. Let's move.
You wanted to ask a question.
I did, and I don't even remember what it was. Oh, grapes.
Yes, you wanted that.
Grapevines. They're not looking good this year at all.
No, well, those freezes really damaged them in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
The leaves the buds were opening, the leaves were coming out. We had those cold snaps and freezing temperatures, and it just burnt those leaves right off. And in a lot of cases, they've been very slow to come back. And there's other things, Japanese maples and some other plants that have been a bit slow to respond after that experience. So hopefully they've got enough energy in that plant to pump out some new leaves. If not, there might be parts of the vine that are killed. So by another few weeks to a month here, if nothing's come out on those vines, then start to do a little snipping and see whether the wood in there is damaged, if it's darkened in color, if it's drying out and dying back. If that's the case, then you want to get that, just prune all that dead stuff off and get it back to where there is some live wood and leaves.
Yeah. Okay. One other thing I wanted to ask you about, and it's along those lines, is dogwood tree. When a dogwood tree gets some damage to a limb, they seem to die back really, really quick, don't they?
Yeah, and there might be some other things going on there, too. It may have already been stressed. We've had a number of stressors over the last 20 years on native dogwoods. If you go back in to, what was that, the late 80s, early 90s, we had dogwood decline, which is still around, but there were a lot of dogwoods that just died at that period of time.
Yeah.
And so and there's others that have hung on, but there's anthracnose and some other diseases that will attack them, and they can kind of do that slowly. You may not notice it. There'll be spots on leaves. It can also infect some of the branches.
Does that same disease also affect birch? Because we lost a dogwood and a nearby birch at about the same time.
Dogwood borer is another one that could have killed it. It could have been stressed first. Usually that's what happens, and then you can get dogwood boring into the trunk, and that finishes it off. Birch could be a different thing because there's bronze birch borer and leaf miners, and which usually don't kill the tree, they just affect the leaves. But depending on the timing and how healthy the plant is, losing leaves from that over time could cause some stress, and then we can get the borers going in, and then that can finish it off. And on top of that, for the last 3 to 4 years, all the wet weather, saturated soils, we could have root death. So all those things can add up, and
none of them are fun.
Out in the spring.
None of them are fun.
No.
All right.
No, because it requires work.
All right, I'm going to go do some book learning on everything that you said today.
There you go.
Thanks,
Study
Bob.
up on that.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Hey, all right, you too.
We'll see you. We'll see you. We'll see you.